Hello again and welcome back to our Black Mirror review series. Today we take a look at Season 3's second episode, Playtest. Okay, so our story here revolves around Cooper, a thrill seeker who ran away from home and is going on a world tour from country to country because he just wants to have fun. Throughout the episode, Cooper's mom is constantly calling him, but Cooper never answers and is hesitant to explain why. While in London, as a way to earn some extra cash, Cooper takes a job as a playtester for an experimental VR game. Now, here's the annoying thing about this episode. It's kind of impossible to analyze it because everything that happens after Cooper first puts on the VR set doesn't actually happen. The real-life timeline of events is this.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Nearly there.
Mom! 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 Mom!
So, with this being the case, that means that we know practically nothing about the VR. Everything we do know about it, like how it could only materialize things from the player's memories, is told to Cooper while inside the VR, meaning that Cooper pretty much made it up. And that's one aspect of the episode which I really liked. Like, when I first watched this episode, I remember questioning the realism of a VR game being this advanced when the story seemingly takes place in the present. Like, there's this part where Cooper is browsing through someone's video game collection, and all the games shown are PS3 and PS4 era games. There's no Game Master 3000 games or anything like that, meaning that the story takes place strictly in the present. So, intentionally or not, the episode is making you question what you're seeing in the VR games right from the start, which I thought was pretty clever. Anyways, another thing I really liked about this episode was the main character, Cooper, which is a bit controversial because there's a pretty big number of people who hate his guts. Most of his criticisms seem to stem from the following things, basically. First, people think he's a moron for going along with this whole VR thing when it was pretty obvious from the get-go that this whole operation was shady as fuck. And to make matters worse, he doesn't even read the contract that he signed and barely questions the necessity and implications of having a medical device implanted into him. So honestly, I totally get why people would be frustrated by that. Like, if I was in his shoes, I wouldn't just glance over something as important as that. But that being said though, Cooper is not like me. This is someone who decided to just pack his bags and go on a world tour one day. He is the embodiment of a YOLO person. This is someone who doesn't think about the future, he lives in the present. So of course he's not gonna read a contract, and he's obviously gonna shrug off the medical procedure that comes with it. Why? Because, well, that's just how his character is. And that right there seems to be the root of the problem. A lot of people just don't like him as a person. They hated his mannerisms and his awkward attempts to try and fit in and be cool, and that's perfectly understandable really, but as I said before, I just didn't mind it that much. If anything, I even found it to be a bit charming if I'm being honest.
That kind of reminds me of like an end-of-level boss. You know? How you gonna...
I mean, come on, how can you not love this guy? He's adorable. Anyways, to me, your enjoyment of his character will come down to personal preference, really. If you hate this type of person in real life, you'll probably hate Cooper, but if you don't, like me, you'll probably like him just fine. Now, when it comes to the Haunted Mansion lair and its CGI monsters, you're in one of two camps, basically. The fire camp or the really nigga camp. Now, me personally, I didn't really find any of the monsters and such to be scary, like, at all. Like, okay, let's take the spider for example. The spider itself has a creepy enough design, but the problem here is that it doesn't really do anything. It felt like, have you ever seen a horror game's assets online, like in Blender or something? That's what the spider felt like to me, just a character model just sitting there, not really doing anything. Then there's also this chick who transforms into a titan or something, and well, it's a step up from the spider, cause you know, she's actually doing stuff, but I felt they went a tad bit overboard with her, like to the point where this scene just came off as being way too cheesy and over the top to be scary. That being said though, it's still a really cool scene. It's just, as I said before, not that scary to me. However, I don't really see the monsters not being that scary to be that much of an issue, cause I don't think they were supposed to be the main focus. Playtest's actual horror lies more in the psychological rather than in goofy monsters. The stuff I actually found to be pretty spooky were the instances where we don't really know if the things that are happening on screen are a part of the game or not. And also, of course, just the whole concept behind the VR game is terrifying in and of itself. Like, the idea of being forced to face your biggest fear is pretty spooky in my book. And I'm not talking surface layer fears like, ooh, I'm afraid of sharks. I'm talking like fears that are hidden so deep in your subconscious that you didn't even know you had them. That's a scary ass concept. Anyways, I'm gonna be completely honest here. I honestly can't decide on whether I loved this ending or hated it. Like, a part of me is really annoyed by it because it kind of squandered everything that came before it. Like, by having Cooper just die at the end, you're completely disregarding the character arc and moral that was being set up throughout the entire episode. Like, I actually teared up a bit at the part where Cooper visits his mom and we finally find out why he left. Cooper's mom, just like his father before her, had developed Alzheimer's, and Cooper just couldn't bear to go through it again and ran away. And here's the beauty of all this. Thanks to his experience in the VR game, Cooper was finally able to come face to face with his biggest fear. He fears that just like his parents before him, he too will eventually get Alzheimer's and lose his memories. This is why he starts the trip to begin with. He wants to make a bunch of happy memories while he still can. Throughout the first half of the episode, he tries to deny that this is why he's doing it, but thanks to the game, he's finally able to confront this fear, which has haunted him ever since his parents' diagnosis. This episode could have had a piece of technology actually making someone's life better for a change, but instead, it has an ending which could easily be boiled down to technology! All jokes aside though, a good chunk of Playtest's runtime was dedicated to fleshing out Cooper and all of his struggles. So I found it really weird that they just throw all that out the window and end the episode like this. But hey, maybe that's the point. Like, maybe the episode wanted to intentionally break our expectations. The message it actually wanted to tell was just how easy it is to die and that we should make sure not to have any regrets when it inevitably happens. It's a really dark ending, but at the same time, it sort of feels like the punchline to a really cruel and fucked up joke at the expense of you, the viewer. Like, at first you're tearing up and have a really sweet ending with Cooper redeeming himself, but the next moment you're left baffled and confused. Like, what the? This episode was just a roller coaster of emotions. That being said though, if I had to choose between saying that I liked it or not, which I kinda do, cause that's like the whole point of making a review, I'd have to say that I wasn't that big a fan of it. I still appreciate what they were going for, but despite what their intent might have been, to me, the ending just came off as being kinda forced. In my eyes, the episode would have been way better if it ended with Cooper redeeming himself by coming back to his mother and concluding it in such a way that we didn't know if Cooper was still in the game or not, instead of just setting it in stone by killing him. Oh, and speaking of which, I've often heard people theorize that Cooper didn't actually die and that his death was actually just another layer of the VR game. He would eventually wake up again and go through another layer, and then another layer, and then another, endlessly maybe. My response to that is that there is absolutely nothing in this ending which would imply that Cooper's death did not take place in the real world. If anything, it points to the opposite. Like, the episode has firmly established that everything that happens in the second layer can only be based around things which Cooper has already seen or experienced in real life. For instance, the scary tall guy we see in the mansion is a combination of a design he saw in the game studio's lobby and his school bully. Then there's also this spider monster thing, which again is a combination of his bully, but this time combined with a giant spider he saw in a movie. And hell, if you want to go deeper into this, there's also this part where Cooper gets stabbed, and the interesting thing to note here is that he gets stabbed in exactly the same spot he got stabbed in the past. And that right there is obviously no coincidence. The pain he feels in the game is lifted directly from his memory of what it felt like to get stabbed in the specific area of his body. So, putting all these examples into consideration, take a look at this scene. Now, you probably noticed that when Saito and Katie are speaking Japanese, a language which Cooper does not understand, there are no subtitles. But in the ending, we see Saito speaking Japanese with subtitles, which to me implies that this is the real world. I think this subtitle thing was the creator's way of subtly hinting to the viewer what's real and what's not. Well, it's either that or they just fucked up the subs while making the episode, but I think it's the latter, cause this show has always had great attention to detail. Anyways, that's pretty much all I had to say about this episode, so yeah, that's that. Thanks for watching.